I was good, everyone. So, in today's trade recap, we'll go over the trade I took today, Wednesday, January 21st, and we'll go over the importance of have a pretty clean target, which was, in my opinion, the main difference to this trade, and I was able to make a little under 140k today. So let's get to it. So the high time frame here in the 4 hour, the main thing I was looking for in terms of delivery was this last 4 hour gap that we had down here. And I was waiting for this to get tapped since Tuesday after the bank holiday. And I remember telling people, okay, I want to see what's happening into this 4 hour and then that delivering the move back to the NWOG, that being the main target. As you can see here, we had this huge 200 point NWOG, and the bigger the NWOG, usually the better it is as a drawn liquidity. So I really wanted to capitalize on these longs right here. Now, in this leg here, yes, we could go back to these lows. We could go into any lower time frame gap inside this 4 hour, like this small 1 hour here. But if you want to stay organized in terms of what you're going to chart, usually the highest time frame things are going to be the most relevant. So as you can see here, we don't really have any daily gaps. So the highest time frame gaps in this leg are 4 hours, and this is the most discounted in this leg. So usually this would be the most relevant thing I would have to chart. So that's what I was waiting for to get the delivery back to the NWOG. Now coming into the actual day here on Wednesday, you can see we also, during this move down that tapped the 4 hour, we also took out this sell side liquidity points here, which is also a nice extra manipulation to the trade. So coming into 9:30 here, I was pretty clear to what I wanted to see. I wanted to take continuation longs after the tap into this 4 hour. And every time you look for a continuation, it's very simple. All you want to see is a high time frame gap opening, like a 5 minute, 15, 30, and you wait for a retrace on it and then take an inversion out of it. And you can add whatever confluence you want, and as long as your drawing liquidity is still there, it should be pretty straightforward. So once 9:30 hits, you can see we open this 15-minute unfilled gap right here, and this is the highest time frame gap in this leg, so it's pretty significant. Also, one very nice alignment here that we had is if you get this whole range from all the way to this low to these highs right here on the pre-market, you can see that the 0.5 here, the equilibrium of this range, is just short of this swing. So you can see in this move down, you can see that we edged the EQ, and this resweep tapped then into the EQ of the range. So once we got this resweep rejected from EQ and closed above this candle right here, this is a CISD, and the more relevant is this new tap into this new liquidity pool, the more relevant the CISD is going to be. So this is a pretty high probability CISD. Also, if you look at this leg down that taps into EQ, resweeps this low inside the 15-minute gap, if you go to the 30-second, you have this main retracement on this leg, which would be this swing low to the swing high. This is where I place my fib. So you can see we have a pretty nice ABS rejection on the 30-second right here. So this is just a little nice extra confluence. I'll be honest, I would have taken this trade even without the rejection, but it's just a nice little bonus, and it allows you to enter off the rejection if you want to, if you want even better RR. Now at this point, I'm just waiting to get my entry, and this 1 minute gap right here looked pretty nice. This was pretty much the only time frame you had a gap, and it looked pretty nice on the leg. So there was no reason not to wait for it, in my opinion. So I wait for this inversion, we get a nice close right here. If you wanted to, you could have even waited one more candle for the CISD. But anyways, I enter after the 1 minute close. I put my stop below this low right here. Usually, when you have this pattern of low, high, lower, low, higher, high, where you validate the CISD, a lot of times you can place your stop loss instead of the wick all the way here. You can place it at this low that got swept. It tends to hold pretty well based on my back testing. So pretty nice RR on this. Now I was only on this for 1 minute, but because I really wanted to target the NWOG, I decided to target it regardless. And as you can see, it was a pretty nice 1 to 7.4 RR trade. Now, of course, this NWOG was not the only draw you had on the buy side. So you had, for example, London highs right here that got swept pre-market. You had all these other stacked highs on the high time frame also, And of course, you had a bunch of other unfilled gaps, such as this 1 hour or any other gap you wanted to target. But considering in terms of level of strength of liquidity, so how good a liquidity pool is, the NWOG in this case is much higher time frame and much more relevant, hence it's my final TP. Now, because I was in this with only one mini, I just held through it all. But you could have taken partials at any other liquidity pool you wanted. Now, one thing I did because this was such a big trade, almost 300 points, I did trail my stop loss to this low after we rejected from it, because I didn't really want it to see we going up and down, up and down. I wanted us to hit the final TP really quick. And this setup, based on all the confluences, gave me confidence to do so. Now, this right here is a very good reminder to why you need a good target when you're trading. I always tell people that for you to have a good trade, you need 3 things aligned. You need the context, which would be your high time frame bias or your overall drawing liquidity. So does this trade make sense in terms of, okay, price wants to go from this point to this point. So in this trade, it did make sense because we wanted to go from this point, the 4 hour, to this point, the NWOG. So in the long term, this trade makes sense. Okay, we're going from here to here. Now the second thing is your entry. Okay, we want to go from this point to this point, but why do we want to do that now? So this is why it's important to have your entry, your confluences, and your confirmation, because we could have just accumulated here and had this move at 2 p.m. So why does it make sense that we will have the move now? Okay, it makes sense because we have all of those confluences telling me that we're gonna do so. So that's why it's important to have an entry, because it times your trade. It tells you, okay, this context here, this idea is gonna happen now. And that's why you can't just, I think we're going up, so I'll press buy randomly. You might be right, we might go up, but there's nothing indicating that we'll go up now. So that's why you wanna have your entry. And the last thing you want is your target. So this also goes back to your context and your drawing liquidity. But why does price want to move from this point that you previously said all the way to this point, which is your final take? Why does it make sense in terms of liquidity? And usually it's pretty simple to have a good target. All you have to do is think, okay, in general, the higher time frame, the better. It can also be aligned with time. So, data lows, data highs, session highs and lows, these are all based with times. 930 lows, 930 highs also. And it also relates to overall price action, which tends to go from external liquidity back to internal liquidity, or rebalancing ranges through equilibrium, or rebalancing gaps. So that's why you're pretty much always going to target either external liquidity, EQ, or gaps, which in this case, the new week opening gap or fair value gaps work pretty much the same way. So yeah, this was today's trade. I've only taken, I think, 4 trades this year, and this is on pace to be my best month by far. And this is just another proof that you don't need to take a lot of trades, and quality is way better than quantity in this trading game. And you should always chase capital and not more trades. So yeah, shout out to everyone that watched to this point, and peace.